India has set a target called Viksit Bharat to become a fully developed nation by 2047. Reaching that goal requires a massive surge in electricity generation to power a rapidly industrializing economy. Solar and wind are vital, but they are intermittent and require 10 times more land than nuclear power. At the same time, while coal provides 75% of India's power today, the 2070 net zero pledge prevents further expansion. This leaves nuclear as the primary low-carbon option for a constant, always-on industrial grid. But there is a major resource constraint. India holds only 1 to 2% of the world's known uranium reserves. Relying on traditional nuclear reactors would mean importing nearly all their fuel, leaving the national power grid vulnerable to price volatility and sudden geopolitical supply shocks. If India's 2047 industrial goals rely on a grid fueled by foreign markets, its energy security remains tied to the decisions of other nations. However, India possesses a massive geological advantage, roughly 25% of the entire world's thorium reserves. This thorium is physically accessible, sitting heavily concentrated within the monazite sands along the country's southern coastline. But thorium presents a physics problem. It is fertile, not fissile, meaning it cannot sustain a nuclear chain reaction on its own in a standard reactor. In the 1950s, physicist Dr. Homi J. Bhabha designed a 3-stage Masterplan specifically to bypass this hurdle and eventually tap into that thorium. In April 2026, after decades of research, the Department of Atomic Energy successfully initiated a sustained chain reaction at a new prototype reactor, activating the second and most difficult phase of that plan. This milestone is the key to a multi-generational strategy intended to eventually unlock 400 years of domestic energy. Stage 1 utilizes India's current fleet of pressurized heavy water reactors, which burn the limited supply of natural uranium. As this uranium burns, it produces a crucial byproduct in the spent fuel, plutonium. Instead of treating this as waste, India reprocesses and stockpiles this plutonium to use as the concentrated fuel for the next step. The first stage was designed from the beginning to act as a manufacturing plant for the starter fuel required to reach Stage 2. That brings us to the Kalpakkam Prototype Fast Breeder Reactor, which achieved criticality on April 6, 2026. This is a breeder reactor, meaning it produces more fuel than it consumes. The core contains a mix of plutonium and uranium, surrounded by a thick outer blanket made of uranium-238. Fast-moving neutrons from the core strike the liquid sodium coolant and hit the uranium-238 blanket. This bombardment forces the atoms to absorb neutrons and transmute into fissile plutonium-239. This reactor is the bridge to thorium. Eventually, engineers will replace the uranium blanket with thorium-232. The same neutron bombardment will convert that thorium into uranium-233, the fuel for the final stage. Stage 2 functions as an industrial manufacturing plant for nuclear isotopes, creating the specific fuels needed to unlock the country's thorium reserves. In Stage 3, India will roll out reactors that run almost entirely on the uranium-233 fried from its coastal thorium sands. But the scale of this ambition is massive. India currently has less than 9 gigawatts of nuclear capacity, but the 2047 target is 100 gigawatts. Building mega-reactors at this scale requires billions of dollars in upfront capital and decades of construction, costs that are difficult for the state budget to sustain alone. A physics roadmap only works if the funding is available to build it. Today, the primary bottleneck is no longer the science, but the capital required for construction. To solve the funding gap, the government passed the SHANTI Act in 2025. This legislation ended the state's 60-year monopoly over nuclear power. The act allows private companies to build, own, and operate nuclear plants, opening the sector to massive private and foreign investment. This shift allows for the rapid deployment of small modular reactors, compact units that can be built quickly to power industrial hubs and data centers. By merging Bhabha's 70-year-old physics roadmap with these 2025 market reforms, India has built a mechanism to utilize its own thorium reserves and reduce its long-term reliance on imported fuels.